What up, people? Visions of Mana is being released next week, and I'm really excited about it. I played through the demo on my PS5, and because of that, this will be the first game in the Mana series that I buy, and I'm looking forward to see what this long-running franchise has to offer. But unlike me, maybe you don't know much about the game or why you should care about it. Well, don't you worry, I'm here to help with that. Also, real quick, for all the people who are new to the channel, I make videos of single player games and I mostly focus on RPGs. If that type of content interests you and you end up enjoying this video, consider subscribing or just hitting the like button to help spread this video around. And with that, here are the top 5 reasons you should be excited for Visions of Mana. The first reason to be excited is that the game is very beginner friendly. Visions of Mana is perfect for people wanting to get into the series. There's no story events tying any of the Mana games together, so there's no reason you can't just jump into this latest entry. Also, speaking of beginners, if you or someone you know happens to be new to RPGs or jrpgs, this is also a solid game to start with. The combat, which I'll get more into later, has a few mechanics to get used to, but overall it's very simple, which is great if you're just getting into this massive genre of games. But whether you're new to the series or not, the game is shaping up to be great for both sides to enjoy. Next reason to be looking forward to the game is the visuals. Visions of Mana is simply just a beautiful game to look at in many ways. Like I said in the intro, I played the demo on my PS5 with my OLED TV, and how great the game actually looked sold me on getting it for the PS5 over my Steam Deck, which is usually where I've been playing a lot of my RPGs lately. Whether it's the environment while you're exploring or completing a quest, the flashiness of class strikes, or just the designs of the characters and monsters, this game seems like it's going to be 20 plus hours of eye candy, which I'm completely okay with. Also, speaking of designs, so far, based off what I've seen in trailers and my 3 hours playing the demo, the enemy designs is one of my favorite parts of the game from a visual perspective. jrpgs from franchises like Dragon Quest, Final Fantasy, Persona, and early Pokemon games have made me not only appreciate well-designed enemies in games, but also raise my overall standard. Thankfully, Visions of Mana not only meets that standard, in a few ways it actually exceeds them. But anyway, if you're someone who appreciates visuals in games, especially when it comes to designs, Visions won't disappoint, especially on PS5 or the Xbox Series consoles. Now let's get to the part you care about the most, which is the combat. In Visions of Mana, you'll be fighting with 3 members of your party and you can easily switch between them at any time during a fight. You have your 2 buttons for light and strong attacks, and based off your character and class, they will have different type of combos they can pull off. In the demo, you had access to Val, Morley, and Karina, who all play differently enough in my opinion. Val felt like a more of a jack of all trades type who leaned a little bit more towards being a bulky tank, while Morley was more focused on fast-paced attacks and dodging. When it comes to strengths and weaknesses, while you're doing damage to an enemy, the color of the HP damage will tell you if that enemy is weak to it or not. Yellow means your damage is strong against it, blue means they resist it, and gray means it's completely ineffective. In the game, there are 2 kinds of damage, physical and elemental. Physical is split between slash and strike, and elemental is divided into fire, water, wind, earth, darkness, light, moon, and wood. While you're fighting, you'll have access to a ring system unless players have a shortcut to spells, items, and abilities without having to pause and do all that stuff. The convenience of being able to put your most used items and favorite abilities as shortcuts is great, and I hope it becomes a mainstay for the series. One of my favorite parts of the combat were the class strikes, which are these super moves that you can use to turn the tide in a fight. In order to use these moves, you have to fill up your CS gauge, which you can do by successfully attacking an enemy or countering their attacks. I'm not sure if dodging attacks increases the gauge, but I don't believe so. Earlier I was talking about visuals and eye candy, and these class strikes moves are the perfect representation of that. They're very flashy, and the fact that character class strikes will be different based on the class is awesome. Going into this demo, I actually assumed I was going to gravitate more towards Morley the most because I typically prefer the speedy dual blade type of characters, but surprisingly I ended up using Karina the bulk of the time, as you can probably see throughout the gameplay footage. Maybe it was her focus on magic, combos available, or the fact that she has a little dragon tail. Who knows, but what I do know is, once I switched her class to the one with the fan, she was even more fun to play. Speaking of class changes, this might be the mechanic that keeps the game from getting stale for me. You only get a little taste of the potential in the demo, but I like how you can switch characters into essentially any class you want. And with there being, I believe, 6 playable characters you can switch classes around with, it'll make finding optimal party synergy and who fits your playstyle not only easier, but more fun as well. And while there are a couple gripes I and other people had with the combat, overall I enjoyed my time fighting enemies in the game, and I'm excited to see what the full game has to offer as far as gameplay is concerned. Next up is the sense of adventure Visions of Mana has. The whole story is predicated on Val taking Hina to the Tree of Mana with the promise of a grand journey because of it. I've said on this channel ad nauseum about one of my favorite aspects of games being exploration. Just being able to travel and see what the world has to offer and go off the main path and discover some secrets before going back to the main story is something I'll always appreciate, and is why games like Witcher 3 and Final Fantasy VII Rebirth are held in such high regard with me. And Visions of Mana seems like it's no different. After about a half hour or so into the demo, You're given your giant dog or pickle to ride, and you're led off into this mini open world to explore. One of the cool things I want to point out is that it seems like when you're riding on top of your dog, you don't have to engage with enemies. You can walk right up to a group of monsters and a battle won't automatically trigger if you're on top of pickle. I personally like this because it makes it so when you want to explore and look at the scenery, you can do that without having to worry about getting into a fight. And don't worry, if you want to fight, you can just get off the dog and do that and call them back when you're done. Traveling around this open zone you have access to was fun, and funny enough, I found myself oftentimes preferring to walk because of the ability to do double jumps and air dashes that you can't do with riding on top of the dog. While there wasn't much in the way of discovery while playing, in the trailer it showed a lot more options when it comes to exploration, such as giant stone monsters, riding rocket ships, or even swimming in the ocean with some sort of turtle monster. So I'm hopeful and optimistic that the full game will have much more to do when exploring this world. Okay, usually with these preview videos, I usually just talk about the positives in the game, but since no game is perfect, I thought it would be helpful to name some negatives or slight issues I had with the game as well. One of my biggest gripes is the side quests in the game. Like many JRPGs, the side quests in the game were nothing more than fetch quests or clearing out a group of enemies in an area. There was literally a mission where all I did was go get a hairpin and bring it to an NPC. A hairpin! Like, what are we doing, people? My disdain for mediocre and basic side quests is at an all-time high, and I don't have very much patience for them. And even though this is just a demo, these are the side quests Square Enix chose for us to see, so it doesn't give me much hope for the quality improving when the full game is released. Also, while not bad, the overall story seems like it's going to be very basic and predictable. Nothing about it seems unique, and I feel like I've heard it a million times. I've read from preview videos from people who have played much more of the game that it gets better, so I'll take their word for it, but so far, I wasn't impressed. Some other people who played the demo also said that the combat felt stiff to them. So here's the thing, recently I've been playing a lot of games that focus on fast inputs and combos such as Devil May Cry 3, FF7 Rebirth, and also Tekken 8. And because of that, I did notice that it felt like I had to slow down my inputs a little bit in order for the combos to go through. Basically, it felt like I was going faster than the game wanted me to, if that makes any sense. And while it was awkward at first to get used to, once I got the rhythm down, it became more enjoyable and not a deterrent at all. But that's just my perspective. If you have the option, I would greatly recommend you trying out the demo for yourself so you can see how the combat feels so you can make a better decision about it. My last and probably biggest issue with the game I want to talk about is my problems with the enemy lock-on feature. In the game you can press, I believe, the right analog stick to lock onto an enemy and fight them, but the issue is any slight touch of the analog stick moves the lock onto someone else. There's been so many times when I was fighting one enemy only for the target lock to bounce somewhere else and I had to figure out where that new target is. Combined with the fact that in a lot of battles you have your 3 party members and 4 or 5 enemies attacking simultaneously at the same time, so a lot is going on screen, which makes it not knowing who you're supposed to be attacking even more frustrating. I don't know whether or not this is something that can be easily fixed during an update or patch, but I really hope it is because it was beyond frustrating to deal with. But those few issues aside, I still enjoyed my time playing and I'm still very much looking forward to this game. Now, the last reason on my list about why you should be excited for Visions of Mana is that the game is essentially comfort food. What I mean by that is, during this video I've talked about story, combat, and exploration, and while good, none of these areas of the game are necessarily going to blow you away. You've seen it all before and you pretty much know what you're getting with this game. But for me, that's not necessarily a bad thing. The fact that you played many adventure-focused JRPGs like this in the past may turn some people away, but for me, and I'm sure many others, that level of familiarity will be more than welcomed. Either way, whether it's innovative or not, I feel like this JRPG is the perfect adventure to end this summer with, and I think you should be on the lookout for Visions of Mana when it releases for PS4, PS5, Xbox Series consoles, and PC on August 29th. But I'm really interested to hear from you guys now. Are you excited for the game? Did you play the demo? What do you think about the combat? Let me know in the comments. If you want to see more content from me regarding RPGs, click one of the links on the screen, and as always, don't forget to like and subscribe to keep up with the channel. Later.